at that time, Haiti was really serviced out of the Caribbean, out of Puerto Rico, and guys would go in TDY for a couple of weeks. We had a lot of Colombians living in country. They were kind of doing TDYs the way DEA was doing TDYs, right? You have Colombian traffickers who would go stay for a few months, and they couldn't wait to get out of the country. I mean, there are dope traffickers who couldn't wait to get out of that place because they used to get routinely kidnapped and be held for ransom. It was just kind of part of going there. They knew they were going to get kidnapped. You've never seen a Colombian trafficker so happy to see a DEA agent as when we'd roll up and rescue them from wherever they were being held.
I'm Steve Murphy, DEA Special Agent retired and now host of the Game of Crimes podcast. If you've seen the Netflix series Narcos, then you know my story. I now bring you stories of heroism and bravery from our law enforcement and military heroes, and occasionally from the criminals that they faced. Welcome to Game of Crimes. Hey, crew. Welcome back to this week's edition of Game of Crimes with Murph in the morning. Thank you folks so much for coming back every week. I'm so excited about today's guest. It's another cop, and it's a retired DEA agent. But man, has he got an interesting past in life after DEA. I mean, wait till you hear about this. So this guy is almost 30 years as a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration, came out as a special agent in charge. He is the author of 7 books, and let's just say so far, because he has an unbelievable exploding writing career. He's a consulting producer on a show called the Bass Reeves series. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what that was till I talked to him and I looked it up, and it's worth looking at. And now he's a writer. Have you ever seen Yellowstone? He's now a writer for one of the Yellowstone spinoff shows that's going to be coming out. Where the heck did that come from? You know, I mean, I left DEA, Javier and I left DEA, and here we are doing the Narcos things, and we got invited to Netflix. But man, today's guest is killing it, and he's making a second career out of it. So it's an honor and a pleasure to welcome Todd Scott to the Game of Crimes. Scott, Todd, thank you very much for coming on the show, brother.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to it.
Well, do a lot of people call you your last name as your first name?
Yes. It doesn't help that I have 3 first names, Jeffrey Todd Scott. So it's been confusing. And actually, you can kind of tell every epoch of my DEA career by what people called me, because I started as Jeffrey, became Todd, was JT at certain points, J Todd at the very end. So I kind of know where I am in my DEA career by what names people knew me by during that 30-year tenure.
Oh, yeah. Well, they gave me some other names also in DEA, but not I want to mention here on the show. It's pretty easy with Murphy. Everybody calls you Murph, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I just like I do with all our guests, I surprised him this morning with our small town police blotter, and he did not hesitate. Todd is actually from Kentucky. Yeah, you guys know I grew up in Tennessee and West Virginia, so we've got that hillbilly connection there going, which this should make this a lot of fun. And he was born in a place called Paducah on the west side of Kentucky. Now, my oldest son's wife and family are from Paducah. So I just love that connection. What's it got to do with anything? Not a damn thing, but that's just interesting because I've never met anybody else from Paducah before. Right. So Todd, if you would, man, go ahead with that story from Kentucky about these wonderful criminals.
Yeah, no. And this is kind of a typical Paducah story, right? Where tables turn for a masked armed robber. So if you're going to rob a place with a handgun, you probably want to keep your weapon on you at all times. In 2019, a young man, later identified as Corey T. Phillips, learned this the hard way when he held up the Country Inn and Suites in Paducah, Kentucky. I think a place I've actually been to. He held it up at gunpoint, and surveillance captured Phillips demanding money from the woman at the counter. After getting his wish, the criminal placed his gun on the slab to gather the wads of cash thrown at him, and faced with this perfect opportunity to turn things around, the receptionist, quick-thinking receptionist, right, picks up the gun and points it at her attacker. The now defenseless Phillips promptly fled the scene, later arrested by authorities. And I often said that we caught the dumb ones. Unfortunately, there were a lot of dumb ones. Yeah. And you realize in the careers that we have had, not everybody's a great crook. right? Everybody thinks they're a great crook. Everyone thinks they're a criminal mastermind, but most people just don't have the DNA for it. And it's clear that Corey Phillips did not have the DNA to be an armed robber, because he forgot the thing that's, damn what's most important to him, which was his gun. But a hell of a story, not unusual for Paducah, which is a small town in a lot of ways. Glad it turned out well not for him, but for the young lady. Again, this shows you that crime really doesn't pay, at least not in his case.
Oh man, you wonder, was that his first experience? Because that's a learning experience there for him.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that we didn't know cops and agents who occasionally left their guns behind too, but usually not right in the middle of the operation.
Yeah. I hate to admit it. I may have had to go into the bathroom one night and got a call as I'm coming out and answered the call with no gun belt on.
Yep.
Oh boy, that was 100 years ago though. So, hey man, thank you so much for reading that. It's, I love doing this part. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I live in Orlando, so it's time for another Florida story, because there's so few criminals and stupid criminals down here in Florida. I tell everybody, Todd, I think we have more stupid criminals in Florida than the other 49 states combined. It's unbelievable. So here's the story. Hey, it's tough out there for a salesman. Sometimes you have to make cold calls. That's right. And that's exactly what teenage salesman Shaquille McKinney did. Just that the product he was marketing to potential customers wasn't the usual product. It might have been called weed. Yep. McKinney had made a number of cold calls throughout Pinellas County. That's over in the Tampa, St. Pete area, asking people if they needed some of the green stuff. Unfortunately for him, one of those people was a Gulfport police detective. He arranged to meet McKinney at a nearby school, and when the young boy arrived to deliver the drugs, he found a number of police officers waiting for him. He was very popular at that time. He was charged with drug possession with intent to distribute within 1,000 feet of a school. You idiot. Man, if you're going to take up a life of crime, do a little research first.
Right, exactly.
It's just, all of these people, like you said, they think they're going to be successful criminals, but most of them need to go find another career because they're not.
Yeah. Well, crime is actually hard, right? To do it well. We dealt with some of the best in the world at it during our respective careers.
Yep.
But again, it's kind of like writing. Everyone thinks they can do it till they actually do it. And everyone thinks they could be a good criminal till they actually have to commit a crime.
Yep. You're so right. Javi and I, when we started writing our book, I thought, well, let me give it a shot. And I sat down one day at the kitchen table after I retired and probably spent about 6 hours writing and waited a couple of days and came back and looked at it. And I thought, what a bunch of crap. Nobody's going to read this.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I know you had the experiences I did, that every snitch would come in and say, well, if you just give me a phone and a gun, I'll just go do all the work for you and bring it all back to you. And I said, well, if I'm doing all that, then I just do it myself. And writing is kind of the same way. A lot of people will come up and say, I'll just give you the idea, right? And then you write it. And I said, well, if I can do that, I don't need you at all.
There you go.
So.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for doing that. And just for our listeners there, how we met, I have heard about Todd for years. To my knowledge, our paths never crossed when we were still on the job. I retired in 13, but you were on the job back then. But so I was thinking about it here a few weeks ago, and I thought, let me just see if I can find him. And I found him. And I sent him a message, and I think in the same day that I sent him a message on his website, he responded, and look where we are now. So, man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Of course, we all know you. You're a legend, right? Everyone knows.
In my own mind.
No, everyone knows about you and your career. But it is kind of surprising that we were there, because DEA really isn't that big in many respects, and yet our paths never crossed. It's an honor for me to sit down with you. Obviously, most of us know quite a bit about your career and what you've accomplished. And guys like myself who followed after you and stuck around after you were gone, we learned a tremendous amount about how to do this job from you and others like you. So thank you.
Well, brother, thank you very much. But I'm going to tell you, like I tell the other guests on here that say nice things about me, I'm not sending you money. Oh, man. I do appreciate you saying that, though. It's humbling, and at times it's embarrassing, but there are times when it really pays off, like when you have a podcast. So it's, and I appreciate y'all's support out there. Believe me, I do. So, like we do also with every guest, we'd like to hear about your background, where you grew up, how many brothers and sisters, what mom and dad do, did you play sports, just that kind of thing till you got into college.
Yeah, no, I was born in Paducah, Kentucky, but grew up here in Louisville, which is where I'm sitting right now. And I would say I had about as a typical childhood as you could. My parents are still together. They got together as teenagers in Paducah, Kentucky, moved to the big city here in Louisville.
Good for them.
I have one sister. She's 7 years younger than me, and she's been happily married, got two kids, and has been actually living here in Louisville a long time. And I lived in a, suburban middle class neighborhood, the sort of places that, everybody kept their doors unlocked. As kids, you played pickup basketball, baseball, football out in the yard. Everybody knew each other. Parents knew each other. We couldn't have had more of a kind of idyllic, I guess, growing up than I did. Went to public high school here, and I love sports, still do love sports, but I wasn't tall and I wasn't fast, and that limited my ability to do anything significant. So here in Kentucky, everybody plays basketball. It's a big deal. I love basketball. I'm just horrible at it. So I didn't play any organized sports growing up, at least not after about 9 or 10 years old, but was a big sports fan and just kind of had a traditional high school career and was very fortunate to do well and wanted to kind of get out of Kentucky for college and did so. Went to college in Virginia, but again, there was very little in my background, or actually my family's background. My dad was an accountant. My mother was a stay-at-home mother. There was very little in my background that would indicate someone who ended up having such a passion for law enforcement that I did, because it really wasn't anything I saw growing up. I had one kind of a husband of one of my aunts who was a local cop in Paducah, and I spent a little bit of time with him. But beyond that, the kind of passion for law enforcement is something I got on my own and developed as I left here and went on to school.
Wow. Okay, so which team are you rooting for in Kentucky?
Well, I am a diehard U of L fan. I have a lot of wonderful cousins who are all diehard UK fans. So usually about this time of the year, we don't talk at all.
Yep.
But yeah, I grew up watching U of L. We had seasons tickets for many years, and all of my daughters who were born in different states because of the job, right? The one thing they all share still is a love of U of L sports. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but they're all diehard U of L fans too. So,
brother, you and I have moved so much. We got to where we rooted for the team wherever we lived.
Wherever we were. Yeah. Every daughter was born in a different state. I moved, I don't know what your number was, but the time I was done 10 times.
We had 8, which is enough. And by the way, everybody, U of L is not University of Lexington. That's the University of Louisville, because in Lexington is that other team.
Other team, right. University of Kentucky.
It's funny because when we came out of Columbia, we were stationed in Greensboro, North Carolina, and an agent that I'd worked with in Miami had gone to Pakistan when I was in South America, and then we both ended up in Greensboro together. Charlie Graham, I don't know if you ever crossed paths with him, but love that guy like a brother. And Charlie took me down to the U.S. Attorney's office to introduce me around, and you go in and people are like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Who are you rooting for?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, who am I rooting for? Who do you root for in college basketball?" I'm like, West Virginia University? No. It's here in North Carolina. Is it Duke? Is it UNC, NC State? It's just like, good grief, man. And they were just like in Kentucky, man. That was serious business.
Yeah, and it's still very, very much serious business here. I got to see a U of L game. I got to go down to the Yum Center. It's the newer arena they have. It's beautiful. A couple of weeks back, 4 weeks back, I went and saw a game, which I hadn't done in a long time in person, and it was a great time. So,
when you came out of high school, you ended up in a college that is a little competitive to get into. Did you get a scholarship, or how did you end up, and where did you go?
No, I didn't. I went to College of William & Mary in Virginia, which is the second oldest college in the country, actually. And I didn't know much about it. I was applying to a bunch of other schools. I was applying to Georgetown, actually UNC. I was applying to University of Virginia. I had a handful of schools I was looking at. And as we were visiting Georgetown, I'd never really been on a urban campus. If you've ever been on Georgetown's campus, it's beautiful, but the minute you step off of it, you're really in a downtown area. And growing up in kind of the suburban / rural area that I did, it's a little disconcerting. But as we were driving, kind of doing the college tour, leaving DC and heading down to go see University of Virginia in Charlottesville, it was my father who said, there's a college over here I'd read a lot about. It's called William and Mary. It's tucked here in Williamsburg, Virginia. Why don't we go take a look at that? And so we drove on campus, and it's one of the few times in my life where I knew immediately something I wanted to do. The other time was DEA, right? But that first time, 17, 16, 18 years old, whatever it was, drove on that campus and said, this is where I want to go to college. I could just tell the feel, the size, and everything. And I was very, very fortunate to get in, very excited, and spent all 4 of my college undergraduate years there. What's interesting is my younger sister ended up going to University of Virginia. So we both went to Virginia schools, just different ones and somewhat kind of competitors. But
well, William and Mary there too. That Williamsburg's just beautiful, especially if you like American history.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It was ivy color. Like, it was everything I dreamed that a college should be. And at the time, Williamsburg is a tourist area, but it still felt very homey and small and all the colonial stuff around it. And so I had a great 4 years there and really formative, I think, for obviously the rest of my life.
And what was your major?
English, which I guess had nothing to do again with DEA. I'd always been interested in writing, wrote a bunch in high school, wrote a bunch in college, contemplated going to get a master's in writing, but I had a kind of another formative experience during my time in college, which is I worked room service at the Williamsburg Inn, which is kind of a 5-star resort. And at the time, it was really well known for dignitaries and other important people would come and have events there and stay there. And during the room service, I met quite a few Secret Service agents because they were there covering dignitaries and other important people. And so I'd go into these hotel rooms in different era, different time. They'd be in there playing cards and smoking and have their jackets on the back of the chairs. And there'd be 6 of them crammed in one room, right? And the guns and shoulder holsters. And they were like the most interesting guys I'd ever met in my life, right? And I was a young kid, but they tolerated me, and just listening to their stories and kind of seeing what they did. It was that experience in college, but actually nothing to do with college itself, that really got me thinking about law enforcement. And of course, this was shortly around the time Miami Vice, the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Lethal Weapon, the movie, all these sorts of things. I'd like to tell people that I became an agent because I had some great calling or had some kind of great epiphany, but really I just thought it'd be cool. And I met cool people doing very similar things. And that's what kind of drew me to it. Meeting people who were doing federal police work or being federal agents and kind of being fascinated by the lives that they were leading.
Wow. I mean, even when you were a kid, you didn't think about being a cop?
Not so much. I mean, not in high school. Again, wasn't exposed to folks like that. But as I got into college and kind of had these experiences, and again, it was kind of the time period where there was some kind of interesting movies and TV shows, then the idea kind of started dawning on me, because again, for a long time, I thought I wanted to be a writer. And it kind of was my focus. I was majoring in English and all of that, but I wasn't sure you could make a life writing. And still not sure you can do it, but I just wasn't convinced that would be an entire life. I kind of got interested in law, kind of got interested in law enforcement, and I'd go home, tell my parents, "Hey, I think I'm going to pursue this, become getting into law enforcement." My parents thought I was crazy,
as most parents,
as most parents would. But it was something that I kept looking at and kept talking and reading about, and ultimately, I took the plunge.
Wow. So when you graduated, did you immediately apply to DEA or what happened?
Yeah, I started applying basically when I was a senior, and, I was the absolute worst DEA agent candidate on the planet. I mean, I had an undergraduate degree. I'd never been in the military. I'd never been in a law enforcement setting, never been to a police academy. I mean, I knew nothing. I was a kid who knew how to write. So I was shocked that I can kind of continue to get traction as I moved through the process. And of course, panel interviews were done quite a bit different back then than they are now.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And, I spent the whole panel interview kind of under siege, with the very pointed questions. Why on earth, kid, do you want to do this job? Like, you are not an agent. You don't look like an agent. You don't talk like an agent. You don't act like an agent.
Which is a good thing.
Which was a good thing. And I think the fact that I don't get rattled easily and that I was clearly passionate about it helped. But I started applying as I was a senior in college and kind of kept it up for the year and a half or so after college. I went up to D.C., got a job, was kind of going through the process, and got the offer letter, which, we all, can't wait to get. And then she basically told my work, I'm out of here. Thanks for the memories. And then about 2 months later, about 6 weeks later, got another email or letter saying, yeah, we have a hiring freeze. We're going to have to put a hold on that academy class. So I'm ready to go, quit my job, ready to go do the DEA thing. And then that's when I started law school. It was like I didn't have a job anymore. I was still living in D.C. And I said, well, I'll go to law school and kind of bide my time till DEA comes back around, which it did 2 years into my 3-year law school career.
Man. Yeah, I think there's some Murphy in you, Murphy's Law.
Exactly.
Were you still, when you applied for DEA, were you still in Williamsburg or had you moved back home? Where were you?
No, I was still in Williamsburg. Now, actually, my package was processed through, at the time, what was the Louisville residence office. Like that's where my package went through. I did my interview actually in Lexington. I was living in Virginia and finishing up school, but my home of residence was still here. So that's kind of where I processed in through, and that's where I did everything. And of course, that was guaranteed that I would not ever come back here again. That ended up not being true. I did, but at the time I was going through the process and talking to everyone, I knew I would be sent somewhere else. And when I did get through the academy, I ended up in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So in law school, where'd you go to law school at?
I went to law school at George Mason University School of Law. Now it's called the Antonin Scalia School of Law. It's really well known for kind of being political and a lot of kind of economic basis for law. I was married at the time, got married not too long after college, was living in D.C., going to law school, was on law review, was doing pretty well, gotten through 2 years of law school and considering what I would do in law afterwards when I finally got the call from DEA and they said, hey, if you're still interested, we have an academy class. And so they had to do a real kind of abbreviated again background check. I had to do a real quick PT test to make sure I wouldn't, have a heart attack out on the track. And I went to the academy between my 2L and 3L year of law school with the idea, if I fail out of the academy, well, I'll just go back to law school. If I make it through the academy, then I'll figure out the law school part later. And so I went through May of whatever that, I guess that would have been, that was May of 95 or so, and got out of the academy around September. And ended up going to Los Angeles. And so I went back to my original law school and said, hey, I need to take a sabbatical. And they said, fine. And then I packed up all my stuff and went to LA.
Wow. And we got to stop at the academy here for a minute. How many people were in your class?
Not many, because they were really trying to ramp back hiring again. So I think we started with 17 and graduated 15 or 14. 15, I think it was. So really small. So we got a lot of up close and personal attention.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. And I was exactly the sort of person they were sharpening their knives for. I'd never been in any sort of environment like that. I came strolling in. And of course, I went to the academy kind of like you did. We went in Quantico, and you had the FBI guys and DEA guys all sharing the same facilities. And I probably looked more like an FBI guy, like the khakis and the button-down shirt. But man, I really wanted to fit in with the DEA guys. So when they said, hey, all you guys got to cut your hair, I buzzed my hair down to nothing but stubble. And I attacked the academy as well as I could. But I'd never really shot a gun, had never done anything like that. And so everything I know about law enforcement, I learned through DEA. That is my entire law enforcement pedigree is DEA. I learned a lot after the academy, of course, with all the different agencies that we work with and state and local guys we work with. But my DNA as a law enforcement agent, as a federal agent, federal officer, is DEA. I was a blank slate when I showed up there.
And nothing wrong with that. I haven't been. I used to shoot competition, and I was a firearms instructor for DEA during my career. And I know the academy loves people that have no experience with the firearms because they don't have to unteach bad habits.
Right.
So I'm sure you did well. And I'm going to guess you did very good on the academics.
Yeah, I did well. I mean, the law stuff was easy. I was kind of the de facto, hey, let's go talk to the law guy. So that helped a lot. And I was passionate about learning it. Again, I think coming with no preconceived notions, no habits to break, I just wanted to learn it all. So the drug ID stuff, the practicals that we went through, it was all new to me. It was all exciting. And I think, and because I was an easy target to some extent. There wasn't many of us, and there was so much I didn't know, but no one doubted my passion for it and how excited I was to do it. If they told me to stand against a wall for 6 hours, I'd stand against a wall for 6 hours, right? And we know in our careers, there's something to be said for that level of competitiveness and interest and passion for what you do.
Commitment. That's it.
Yeah, commitment.
Did you guys get to submit a wish list where you wanted to be stationed?
Oh yeah, we submitted the infamous wish list, and we got our list of places, and we all kind of talked about what was available, and everyone tried to kind of be decent and I really want to go to St. Louis or I really want to go wherever. So we did all of that, and I put 3 places on my list, and I can still remember to this day how they were ranked out. For me, it was St. Louis, Seattle, and San Francisco. And after I submitted my list, they came back to the room and said, yeah, St. Louis isn't available anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, they're my number one, right? Then another week after that, they came back and said, yeah, Seattle's not available anymore either, right? So I called my wife at the time and said, well, I guess we're probably going to San Francisco because that was number 3 on my list. And they did it for us at that time where you went and stood in front of the room, they hand you your envelope, you tear open your envelope, read what you got.
Yeah.
And so tore open the envelope, fully expecting to read San Francisco, right? And I opened it up, and it was Los Angeles. And I didn't put that anywhere on any of my list.
Same state as San Francisco. Come on, man.
Yeah, they figured it was close enough, right? And I was shocked. Not that I knew anything more about San Francisco, of course, but and then I had to, after everyone broke, I went and of course, we had payphones back then. I had to get on a payphone and call my wife and said, I guess we're moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah. What was her reaction?
Terrified, objectively terrified. I mean, I'd never been to a city that big. I'd never been that far west, quite honestly. But it ended up being probably one of the best things to ever happen to me. I got a great launch to my career coming out of the academy. I went to a place, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. I mean, all I had was DEA and the agents there. And that was my life preserver, which was great because all I could do was then focus on the job and focus on the office. And in that time, which was, 1995, it was a great time to be out in LA doing the work that we were doing and at the scale that we were doing it. You're not doing small town police work in a place like Los Angeles. So it was very good for me and a great start to my career.
Excellent place to learn the job of being a DEA agent. It was wide open back then. What did they put you in a regular enforcement group or was it a specialty group? What did they put you in?
No, I mean, we had, of course, the specialty groups back then. You had the Asian heroin groups, you had some gang groups. And really, at that time, the big groups that were starting up were the Southwest Border Initiative groups, right? I mean, that's when we were really starting to see the movement of cocaine up through the Southwest border. It kind of moved out of the Caribbean through the borders that we were now dealing with in California, Arizona, Texas. And so those were kind of the premier groups at that time, the Southwest Border groups. But I was just sent to a general enforcement group, didn't have any specialty. So we ended up working a ton of different cases, which was great for me because I got to learn everything. Still, I joke with people who watch movies and TV now. When I got on the job, and the same for you, we didn't have cell phones. So there was late in my tenure in LA, there was like one phone that the backup carried, right? But none of the rest of us had phones. We had pagers, right? And we drove around LA, I did, with a bunch of quarters in my center console so I could go to payphones, which you don't even see anymore, right? And we didn't do anything off of GPS navigation. It was all Thomas guide. So you're driving around trying to do surveillance with this book in your lap, flipping and crossing. But it was a great way to do our job. I'm not even sure how we arrested people that way, but we did, right? But no, I was in a great enforcement group, and I got lucky. We ended up doing a huge case involving hash smuggling, and got involved with some actually outlaw biker guys. And we got an informant who came to us. He had done some jail time, and no honor among thieves. They were supposed to take care of him, and they didn't. And he got out of jail, and they were calling him. And he walked in, he was a walk-in, and he said, hey, these outlaw motorcycle guys are set up in Australia, and they're trying to move these big loads of hash. And it sounded crazy. I mean, honestly, he'd been kind of passed around. No one believed him. But my senior partner, I was still a brand new agent, sat down with him, and I didn't have any reason not to believe him. So he said, let's make some phone calls. The old day recorders, get your recorder out and have him record the calls. And sure enough, he was talking to legitimate crooks about multi-ton loads of hash. And they were looking for boat smugglers. That's what they needed, people to meet them at sea and move this hash around for them. And that was one of my first cases, this massive international boat smuggling case. I ended up in Australia and Geneva, Switzerland, and Bali and Germany and, Hawaii. And I, ended up out on a boat, a military supported operation out in a boat at sea, doing undercover on a vessel, on an ocean going tug. All of this, it took nearly 2 years of my life doing this case, but it was like playing in the Super Bowl, as a rookie, quarterback. But it was an amazing, it was dope trafficking at a scale that you only see on TV and the movies, the sort of level of, trafficking that you saw, that you dealt with. But it was an amazing case with legitimate crooks living all over the world, and got to see the money part of it and the dope part of it, and got to do undercover and work informants, and it was a great case.
So, a small town kid originally from Paducah, did you ever envision that you would be doing anything like that before you did it?
No. Oh, no. No, I mean, and every time I'd call my parents and say, this is what I'm doing, they would go out of their minds, right? I called them from a Navy destroyer.
No
right? I had a satellite phone with a Navy destroyer. And I'm a kid. I'm like, you're not going to believe where I'm at, right? I'm near the equator. I'm on a boat, right? And they could hear the engines rumbling. And, every day felt kind of like being in a movie. And, but beyond that, I mean, it was just the day-to-day work of living in a big city and doing cool stuff and riding around. Every day I couldn't believe that our government saw fit to give me a badge and gun and let me loose on the American and pay me to do it, right? Yeah. Hell, I probably would have given half the money back then just because I was enjoying it so much. But I did about 5 years in LA and learned a tremendous amount, worked great cases. Also got to spend some time worked at the LAX airport at that time when you still really had significant amounts of money and drugs coming through the airport. So got to learn to do that kind of airport interdiction, and worked with, at the time, was a really, really famous kind of task force there at the LAX airport, really good at what they did. I was working with these LA sheriffs that were kind of like Jedi, like they could look at 30 people coming off a plane and go, yeah, that guy's got money, or that guy's carrying dope. Amazing to work with those guys in that sort of environment and learn how to talk to people and just kind of observe people in great ways. So I learned a tremendous amount those first few years, and figuring I had solved the drug problem in LA. I was looking for a new challenge and talked myself into going to the Caribbean, and spent 2 years in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, working in country there.
Oh my goodness. Before we leave LA, did you have to do undercover work out there?
I did. I did some undercover work, bought some meth, bought some coke. I enjoyed it. I actually did more undercover work after I got back from my overseas tour, because I got to come home, and spent about 5 years in the middle of my career here in Kentucky, kind of my GS-13 time, senior agent, and did undercover there. And I liked it. I loved it, actually. It's all about telling stories, right?
Yep.
Or at least a believable enough story. And, you just have to be good at your role and know what your role is. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. You and I know it's not for everyone, but I really did enjoy doing it.
So what possessed you to volunteer to go to Port-au-Prince, Haiti?
Well, partly an ex-wife. And I'm not going to say she's an ex-wife because of Haiti, but I had done, when I was still in law school, I had done some kind of asylum claims, had done some immigration work, and done some pro bono work with Action Haitian asylum seekers. And so I knew a fair amount actually about the country. And my wife at the time had spent time in France, and she knew quite a bit about the country too. Haiti's a French-speaking country. And she had worked on she was paralegal and had worked on some of the same asylum cases. So we kind of, at an arm's length, knew quite a bit about the country. And she was already fluent in French, which at the time was the language that you went to language school for. So she's like, hey, let's try this. It's interesting. Let's do it. I didn't know any better and thought, well, okay, let's go overseas on someone else's nickel. Why not? See the world. I'm not sure that Haiti's the world, but
it's a part of the world.
It's a part of the world, but and so every step of my career, I tried to do the opportunities that I would never have in any other part of my life. Right? I mean, I don't think you want to become a federal agent where you have the whole world really at your fingertips to then just go right back home and sit at home. I know we have got to do that, but I think the amazing thing about being a federal agent is all the opportunities you have, to work anywhere in the world and do a ton of different sorts of cases. And so I had this opportunity and I was like, well, why not? I mean, when am I ever going to have this chance again? And I think the selling point to DEA at the time was I'm like, yeah, I don't know French, but my wife does, so she'll help me out. And they were like, yeah, okay, that sounds plausible. Yeah, close enough, right? And of course, decisions were made a little more off the cuff back then. Actually, I think they look, hey, this poor sucker wants to go to Haiti, more power to him.
You might have been the only volunteer.
There was not many of us, but and I think we may have talked about this before. At that time, Haiti was really serviced out of the Caribbean, out of Puerto Rico, and guys would go in TDY for a couple of weeks at a stretch, but you didn't really have anybody living in country. And I was one of the first of a handful of agents who actually lived in country, lived in a house, was in country all the time. And it was the Wild West. It's a very, very difficult country under the best of circumstances. Corruption and just violence on a scale that I had never encountered. Few people, I think, do encounter. At that time, you had a lot of Colombians living in country. They were kind of doing TDYs the way DEA was doing TDYs, right? You have Colombian traffickers who would go stay for a few months, and they couldn't wait to get out of the country. I mean, there are dope traffickers who couldn't wait to get out of that place because they used to get routinely kidnapped and kind of be held for ransom. It was just kind of part of going there. They knew they were going to get kidnapped. You've never seen a Colombian trafficker so happy to see a DEA agent as when we'd roll up and rescue them from wherever they were being held. It was a hell of an experience. Not one in my 2 years, and I kind of had enough at that point, but really, really learned a lot and got to see, again, drug trafficking on a scale that I had just never imagined. I mean, kind of the real massive, cartel level organization stuff that was going on. I know you dealt with, but that it can be easy at times to forget about unless you really, really see it, as you do, I think, only in a foreign country at times. Right.
Who was president of Haiti when you were there? Do you remember? It wasn't Jean Bertrand.
No, it was Preval. Yeah. As Aristide had left, I think it was Preval. I mean, they went through a few even during my tenure there. And my specialty was working with a Haitian National Police unit that was supposed to do maritime smuggling, air and maritime smuggling. I mean, that's tough to do when you don't have planes, you don't have boats, you don't have any of those sorts of things. But we tried our damnedest. And, at that time we were having Colombian flights come in off the Guajira Peninsula. They take these little Cessnas and rip everything out of them, stuff them full of extra fuel and a ton of coke and fly these things in at night. And they would land on these airstrips that were basically lit up by sterno cans. And, they do everything except auger that plane into the ground. Although I saw that too. I saw a lot of wrecked planes and burned bodies. And then they were also sending go fast boats up into Cap-Haitien and other parts of the country that would then get offloaded and put onto the freighters that would go into Miami. So I was just seeing massive levels of air and maritime smuggling. This still continues today, but really just something I couldn't fathom until I saw it. And we fortunately had the support of a lot of acronym agencies and a lot of other military assets, because Haiti didn't have any assets of its own. I think we had like a dinghy, and that was about it. But
they were hoping you'd seize a plane or a boat so they'd have one.
That is right.
I went there from Miami before I reported to Columbia. My ASAC, Pete Charette, who, I don't know if you know Pete, but he's a former guest here on the show. He said, listen, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to do me a solid. I need you to go to TDY to Haiti for 2 weeks. And he sent another agent, Lou Digney, with me. And so we fly down there. We fly in on a Monday. I had landed in Haiti before on a C-130 where we picked up, I think we were picking up dope to bring back up to the lab, but we just loaded and turned around and took off. I got off that American Airlines flight, and they don't have the jetways like you do in a modern airport. You get off on the tarmac, and then you have to walk to the terminal. And the smell, I've got a pretty strong stomach, but I actually gagged from the bad smells. And it wasn't just at the airport. It was all over Port-au-Prince.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere at the time, and looked every bit of it. And it was also difficult. It was difficult and a learning experience, right? Because we had it pretty good in a country that didn't have anything good at all. I mean, we had embassy housing, and we had guards, and we had all this sort of stuff. So I would come home at night, and I had security lights, these rolling blackouts across the city in the neighborhood that I lived in. Because again, I was just in a traditional Haitian neighborhood. There wouldn't be a light for a mile and a half except my house, which was on a generator and had lights, right?
Yeah.
And so my house looked like Cape Canaveral, and everything else was black, right? But there would be hundreds of Haitians sitting outside my house. They'd drag their chairs out there. Their kids would be out there so they could read and do stuff, right? By light, because they didn't have lights in their own homes, right? And so what wore me down more than the work, I think, was I don't know if it's guilt is the right word, but it's just a tough environment to live in when you feel like you have everything and most people have nothing. And it was really risky for the cops who were willing to work with us, really, really dangerous. And we could, at the end of the day, get on a plane and fly away, and they couldn't. And that became tougher to balance than the actual work itself. Just, it's socially a very, very difficult country. And that wasn't my problem to solve, but it definitely was a problem I took to heart and felt bad for. And it made the time there, as much as I learned and the enjoyable things that I got out of it, it really wore on me after a while.
Yeah. When you came out of Haiti, did you get your post of preference, meaning you get to pick where you go, or?
Yeah, I got to go wherever I wanted. They took mercy on me, and
you earned it, brother. Let me tell you.
And I decided to go back home and come back to Kentucky, which is not something I really thought I'd have the opportunity to do, but I did, and it was good. I had 2 daughters at that time, and young daughters, and it's an opportunity for them to kind of be near my parents, their grandparents. And so I came here, and again, it was the Louisville resident office at that time, and came and worked at it and worked with some great agents, and just got to do the very traditional. I mean, it wasn't the big ocean, maritime cases. It wasn't that, but it was just really, really good traditional dope work. Meth was a huge problem. I got Clan Lab certified, so we were doing tons of meth labs around that time. So we'd be doing dope cases all day and then get called out for labs, all night. But also that was really kind of the start of the pain clinics, the pill clinics that we saw a lot out in Eastern Kentucky and some of these rural areas. So I saw the forefront of a lot of that going on. And then even during my time here, started to see the influx of Mexican meth, right? The mom and pop. So the Clan Labs that we started to deal with during my 5-year stint here kind of started to tail off. And then it was more and more, it was Mexican meth that started to infiltrate during that time. And this would have been 2000 into 2005, 2006 that I was here.
Well, I know that most states do, but Kentucky has a little bit of infamous history involved with cocaine smuggling and corruption. A lot of accusations about political corruption, a lot of books out there that are very interesting to read because Kentucky is a beautiful state. You think of Kentucky, you think of bourbon, you think of the horses. You don't think of cocaine smuggling and meth labs, but it's there, just everywhere.
Yeah. And then we had a huge, obviously, homegrown marijuana problem, had a lot of weed out here and did a lot of, whacking and stacking on those sorts of things. We did a lot of that. I had forgotten, and you just jogged my memory there that when I was still in the job, Kentucky was in the top 5 states growing homegrown marijuana. Yep. Yeah. No, we had a lot of that. So it was a great experience in terms of kind of the depth and breadth of what we were working on at that time. And of course, I was thrilled when I never went into another meth lab again. Had enough of that.
Do you still glow in the dark?
I had to take those, the respiratory tests, right? The DEA physicals for years and years, years after I hadn't been in a lab. But one of my partners at that time got gassed when we were in a lab. So I saw somebody go down, because of it. And, and so I learned to take it really seriously. And, we had a good group of guys here, but we'd all been trained, but we all spent a lot of time out in barns and trailers, dingy hotels, dragging people out of these labs. Guys had been blown up or otherwise messed up because they gassed themselves or burned themselves up.
Man, God bless all the guys, all you guys that got the lab training. When I was a young age in Miami, you wanted to do that, but we just wanted to get the cool equipment that you got when you got lab certified. And thank the good man upstairs, that did not happen because it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, no, I was fortunate. So I knew guys that got hurt. I didn't. They were a tough nut to crack, and most of the guys running them, kind of like our guy up in Paducah, Corey Phillips, who left his gun behind. These weren't super crafty criminals, and it showed.
They weren't the brightest bulbs on the Christmas tree.
They were not. They were. No, if you're sitting in a trailer out in the sticks, hooking up anhydrous tanks high yourself, yeah, you're not the smartest criminal.
Oh my goodness! And they were probably still using red phosphorus back then, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think that's just a nasty thing all in itself. I think it touches oxygen. It explodes. And it
explodes. Yeah, Red P Lab. So, yeah, another great chapter in my career. and I think. I just want to say, one of the things I love about my career, and I'm sure you feel the same. Because I went to the big offices, and I worked in a big office, I worked in a small office, right? I worked overseas, I worked domestically. I worked on the border, right? I did undercover. I did the bigger complex conspiracy cases. I did labs. I did airport interdiction. I did about everything that you could do on our career. I'm not saying I did it all well, but through the course of my nearly 30-year career, I was exposed to it all, or I took the opportunities to get exposed to it all. So I really feel good looking back over my career that all the things that you could do, I took a stab at, and I really am thankful for those experiences.
Brother, life is an adventure, and DEA has a ton of adventures to partake in if you just accept the responsibility. It's not easy. A lot of it's not easy, but I'd been a cop for 12 years when I joined DEA. The most powder cocaine I'd ever seen in my life at that time was 2 ounces. My first undercover, we took the DEA undercover yacht. It's all wired with audio and video. Went to the Turks and Caicos Islands, which I'd never heard of. Picked up 400 kilos. So I went from 2 ounces to 880 pounds of coke, and I joke around that I was addicted to cocaine at that point, just in a different way.
Oh, sure. I took 1,300 keys of coke off a vessel that we'd been tracking around the Caribbean for months and months with a little tracker that we had snuck on board and put it on this mast, and it was solar powered on. Took 1,300 keys of coke off of this thing, right?
Very cool.
And so when you have those sorts of cases and do those sorts of things, it's a amazing feeling. It's hard to replicate pretty much in any other part of your life. You're not kidding.
Next up, you decided you want to go management track, right?
Yeah, I did. We all kind of hit that crossroads, and of course, I fully respect everyone who doesn't, but I kind of wanted to try something different. And so I started looking around to become a group supervisor. And one of my former group supervisors, who at that point was now an ASAC out west, he sold me on Tucson, Arizona, kind of sight unseen. Oh, you're going to love it here. It's great. It's sun and sand. He didn't talk about the scorpions and everything else. Rattlesnakes, right? No, he made it sound like it was a resort. Tucson, Arizona is nice, but it is far from a resort. But he said, hey, we really would love to have you out here. Got a great group for you. And brought me out there as a group supervisor. And I took over a group in Tucson, which eventually became an OCDF strike force, part of the strike force that was started up in Phoenix, and did my group supervisor time out there. And, got divorced during my time out there. But otherwise really, really got to work with some fantastic folks and really do border work. I mean, we were, 67, maybe 60 miles or so from the border at that time. The only thing closer was Nogales. And, the AOR there that Tucson encompassed, there was an Indian reservation, the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. Spent a lot of time there because you were having lots of drove mules, literally and figuratively moving through the border down there, moving across the desert, moving through that Indian reservation. So spent a lot of time there in work cases. My group did. And that was you still had significant marijuana trafficking, thousands and thousands of pounds of marijuana weed moving across that border, a lot of it right through Tucson. So
let me ask you about that Indian reservation. Now, did you have jurisdiction on the res?
We did. And, we worked with Bureau of Indian Affairs. We also worked with the TO police. But, we did have jurisdiction. We got to work down there. Border Patrol was working kind of in the same area as well. They helped us with Borstar and some other stuff. But one of the things we were really doing was identifying these scouts. At that time, the cartels would send these scouts up to sit in these basically spider holes, these caves, up there in the border, and they were spotters. And then they would look for the overflights and stuff and kind of let the mule trains know when it was, clear to go. And then they would call out on the radio. These guys would stay up there for a month at a time, and we'd find these holes, and, they'd have fruit and spam and, these little sternos that they were cooking over, and, really, really kind of baseline existence. But, they were up there with binos and handheld radios. So we were scaring them out of those spider holes. We were trying to listen to the radios back then at that time, and then just kind of flooding that area with as many of us as we could, because the res crossed both sides of the border, and, it was easy for them to move back and forth. And those kind of like you see in Texas and other places, these were traditional smuggling routes that had been in that area forever, and they were pretty dug in. But it was fascinating to be out there. And Fox News came out. Ollie North, I guess he was doing this. He came out, and Commander North spent a whole couple days with us out in that desert watching what we did. And they did a big profile on us out there running around in the desert, cool, tracking people. But
I got to meet Ollie after retirement. I spoke at one of his fundraisers actually it was at the Ritz-Carlton across from DEA headquarters there in Crystal City. And it was a Saturday morning, and I took my two daughters with me just because they weren't real sure what Dad did. And his nonprofit was purchasing these motorized wheelchairs for paraplegic military folks. So it's a fantastic cause. But afterwards, went up and said, "Hey, Ollie, would you mind taking a picture with my daughters?" And he dropped everything to come over, and still got the picture of him with the girls. And they were young teenagers at that time. But I don't know. It's up to you what you believe, whether whatever he was doing in Central America. I tend to believe that he was an American hero and a patriot who was used as a scapegoat. But what I know is that with me, the man was stand up. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, and that was my experience with him as well. I mean, he was generous and gracious. He was genuinely interested in what we were doing. He was impressed with the work. And I say we because they're talking about my career, but you know as well as I do that my career is only a reflection of the great guys that I worked with, who taught me everything I know, who took care of me when I didn't know anything. And so he was wonderful with me and the folks that I was working with. And I was proud that we were able to show off what we were doing, which is sometimes in our career difficult to do. And sometimes people don't want to hear it, but I was glad that I was able to spend that time with it. So.
Well, DEA has, love it. I'll love DEA till the day I die, but we have never been good at promoting ourselves, at marketing ourselves to the media or to the public.
No, we haven't. We don't. And as I've learned out in my time in Hollywood, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. And the best person to tell the story is the person who's lived in it. Yep.
Truth be damned out in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I love the folks that I worked with on the Narco series, Javier and I worked with, but the one thing we learned is they will never let the truth get in the way of telling a good story.
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes the truth is very inconvenient.
Yeah. Yeah. So Eric, Chris, all you guys, love you, man. I'm not picking on you. When you were there in Tucson, you guys were out doing your desert stuff. Did you get shot at out there?
I did not. I was very fortunate. I didn't have that. Now I got shot at in Haiti. That definitely happened, but I was very fortunate during my time in Tucson that I did not.
Well, now you got to tell us about getting shot at in Haiti.
So we are out trying to do airplane interdiction, which is tough, right? But we had an inbound flight, and it had landed out on this gravel strip out in the middle of nowhere. And we're racing to it, and we're there with the Haitian National Police and my little unit. We're in these rinky-dink trucks, and we're driving out there. And we can see the plane has landed, right? We know where it is. And as we're approaching and dragging to a stop, I'm trying to get everybody to stop and everybody coordinated. We get out, and the minute we get out, start hearing bullets, right? They're pinging off the cars, pinging off the gravel around us, right? And so what did the Haitians I was with do? They started to run the other direction. And I'm like, no.
I thought we're the good guys.
Right? We're the good guys. Shoot back, right? You're ducking. Shoot back. But that was their natural inclination. So it was a 3-ring circus with bullets flying all over the place, and me trying to make sure that my own Haitian police didn't shoot me when they finally, they didn't have, not all of them had guns, right? And those that had guns only had a limited number of bullets. You had to kind of parcel them out to them. Right. So it couldn't have been an extended firefight, because at least on our side, we didn't have enough bullets to shoot back. But yeah, it was pretty terrifying. I had that happen there, and then I also got caught in what they called manifestations, which is basically kind of a big crowd eruption, and we got trapped going through an intersection, and we were ended up later in armored vehicles. I wasn't in one at that time. And crowds surrounding you, and the tires were lit on fire, and they started throwing these big chunks of rock at the car. And rocking the car and going to tip it over and all that. And I'm pulling out my gun, and that's when you realize the futility at some point. Because you can't shoot everybody. I mean, you just can't. What were you going to do? What was your real out at that point? So your head is down, the windshield's breaking, the side windows are being blown out through rocks coming through them, but you're not going to shoot your way out. You can't kill everybody, nor do you want to. So that's where I realized the limits of what we could do, right? I mean, you have this badge, you have this authority, you have a gun, which at times makes you feel somewhat like Superman. Yeah, invincible, right? And then you realize against 1,000 people burning tires and wrecking cars that there's no amount of invincibility that you have. And I think that was a good lesson to learn during my time. I had other events like that you're really outnumbered, you're really overwhelmed, and you had very little protection. And, it made me respectful of the authority we had, but also quickly understand the limits of it, and also my own limits, right? And we as agents are notoriously bad at knowing our own limits. I mean, part of the job is pushing past them, but sometimes you have to know when you're outnumbered, and you're not going to take the hill, or the hill's going to take you. And I learned that during my time at Haiti.
Who was with you in that car?
There was 2 other agents, and they were Greg Sakura, I believe. And then the other, I don't think Catherine had gotten there by that time. I have to think for a minute who the other was, but there were 3 of us in the car when we were trapped there. And how'd you get out of the situation? Gunned it, and you had Haitians hanging on the hood and pulling off the side view mirrors, but just drove through it, and then basically just kept pushing forward, and people either got out of the way or get run over. And That's what happened.
And a lot of y'all might think that sounds brutal, but it's survival at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, Haiti was lawless at that time. And we were the law, which isn't saying much because we had kind of very narrow purview for what we were doing, which was the drug trafficking. And it was entirely corrupt. So you had the drug trafficking problem, which was a legal problem, but you also had the huge societal pressures that were going on there as well, which is tremendous poverty and a bunch of other things. And that made it a very kind of difficult environment to be in. And so we were trying to do our jobs, but also stay alive.
Yeah, it's right. It's cliche to say this, but it was survival of the fittest at that point.
Yeah, it was.
Wow. That's it makes for a good story here in retirement.
It does.
You just got to understand the DEA, that's just not a rare thing that happens. DEA people push the envelope repeatedly. They continue to do it. They're locking up some of the biggest criminals in the world. The case that comes to mind is Victor Bout, the arms dealer from Russia, when nobody else could get him. None of the intel agencies, foreign law enforcement, nobody could get him. And they challenged DEA, and our chief of ops at the time said, "Hold my beer." And we got him.
Yeah, and it's fun. You and I have been fortunate. We have great stories and have done great things, but I think we would both agree that we are just a small part of all the great stories that DEA has. I mean, the fantastic cases, the fantastic work. I mean, we've had people do tremendous things all over the world, right? And so I feel fortunate to have worked with those people and learn from those people, but my story isn't unusual, and it's pretty mild compared to other people's stories and what they accomplished. So,
yeah, well, don't sell yourself short there, brother. It takes us all. And that's what I love is you're promoting the team. It's not an individual mission at all. It's the teamwork that gets things done. We've been going over an hour now. So, and I got so much more I want to talk to you about. I mean, we're still on page 1 here. And I've got 2.5 pages.
I'll keep my answers shorter.
No. This is, I'm loving it. I tell you what, let's go ahead and we'll end for today. But like all our other guests here, Todd has agreed to come back and be on tomorrow's episode. We got so much more we're going to touch on, and I really want to get into his life after DEA. So up to you, all the folks. Thank you so much for continuing to come back, continuing to support the show. If you're listening to this and you haven't checked us out on YouTube, do me a favor, go over to YouTube, type in Game of Crimes Podcast in the search bar, hit that subscribe button, see some of the episodes instead of just listening to it. You can see some of these people that you wonder, what the heck were they doing when they were doing the things they were doing? Hit the like button and send me your comments. So until tomorrow, be safe out there. God bless.